Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. So, this episode is sad. It's a good, it was sad and heartbreaking because, you got two parents that got to make the most toughest decision that either of them had to make in their entire life. And unfortunately, it's one of those decisions where it's like, no matter what choice you make, you're always going to sit there and question yourself and second guess yourself. But I think the main purpose about this Brando and Sasha and Liam situation is it comes down to quality of life. And there was a couple of times I nearly teared up just watching it. Stuff like that definitely, for me, hits close to home. But, there's one point where Sasha and Brando are arguing because, Brando is trying to be, I don't want to say more logical, but just kind of accepting the fact that, maybe they should take him off life support because there's not a quality of life that he's going to have being in this vegetative state. You got Sasha that, she's not ready, to make that decision. And so she snaps at him and she runs out. Sonny, talks to her. And, it was good that he came there because, he had experience, he had to deal with something that was similar with Mike. So, he was able to give her some words of wisdom. And just basically since they're kind of sharing the story to kind of help her, either comfort her or help her come to some sort of conclusion. Now, Gladys came there because Gladys was like, the doctor needs to know what are we going to be doing. What kind of decision we're going to have moving forward. So, Sasha leaves and she finds, she goes to look for Brando. And Gladys, it is one of the very few times where Gladys is actually not just tolerable, but I don't want to sit there and say human being, because, listen, at the end of the day, everyone has quirks, and some could be downright annoying. Straight up intolerable in some cases. But it's one of those things where it's nice to see that Gladys, I don't want to sit there and say it can be a human, but can be decent. I'll say that. Saying that Sonny was wrong as far as, he doesn't know if he made the right decision because, he did right by Mike. And I just kind of stood there, was like, I actually had to put down my damn cup. I was like, I'm not used to seeing her like this. And I don't know how long this version of Gladys is going to last. And it's kind of unfortunate that it took this to happen to make Gladys seem somewhat decent and tolerable. But, yeah. There's a point where, Nina's sitting there talking to Brando, and Brando's like, I don't even know if I'm making the right decision, because he tries to base his decision at this point even on Nina. Nina was in a vegetative state, but it was different because, she was like, I was breathing on my own. At the end of the day, Brando knows what he has to do. Well, Brando knows what he should do, again, based on quality of life. But logic and emotion is, it's logic and emotion. Let's just put it that way. So at the end, they both meet up, and they kind of look at each other and just kind of decide on what they're gonna do. Which, let's be honest, at this point they know what they have to do is just coming to that conclusion to do it. Now, in the beginning, Sonny was meant to looking at Nina, and then Gladys came in and, was crying on the shoulder and snapping at Nina. But, Sonny was like, listen, this is definitely not the time for any of that. But towards the end of the episode, Sonny was not there talking to Nina, kind of sharing the experience with Mike and what he had to deal with. Nina was saying that, Mike, he would have been proud of him being who he was, even at Nixon Falls, and, just kind of just talking, whatever. And Carly and Olivia walk up and see both of them, and Carly was, she definitely was not too happy. Now, Carly and Olivia had this little chat, and honestly, tell you the truth, I was like, well, what do you want Carly to do? Because Carly was like, I don't want to sit there and go to war with her. I want the course to decide on her fate. I'm not going to sit there. I'm going to honor Sonny and, try to honor Sonny and just, kind of step back. And Olivia was like, that's not like you. And I get Olivia is basically sitting there saying you shouldn't bottle up your feelings, but I'm like, well, what do you want her to do? You want her to sit there and tear her hair out? You want her to sit there and pummel her like she's been saying in her dreams? Like, what do you want her to do? What is the compromise? Because you're basically sitting there saying, well, this isn't like you. You shouldn't bottle up your feelings. Okay, well, what's your solution? What's your solution? I'm literally sitting here waiting. What are you gonna do? Brooklyn. Now, throughout this conversation, Brooklyn and Chase, they talk about, I'm not gonna lie, Brooklyn actually pissed me off. And so, having any sort of ounce of sympathy towards her made it extremely difficult. And I know that if I was sitting there thinking with logic, I would sit there and say, you know what, it sucks, because Brooklyn is getting the short end of the stick with everyone. Everyone is sitting there coming at her, practically crucifying her, and they don't know the whole truth. And she's actually sitting there trying to do the right thing, and it's just really difficult, but she knows that she has to sit there and keep taking it, because it's not about her, it's about Bailey and her safety. Or Louise and her safety, no matter which name you want to sit there and pick. So as a reviewer, I'm like, that's good, that's character growth, and I'm with it. I'm all there for it. The problem, and I know this is probably, some people can sit there and say, oh, you're being oversensitive, blah, 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 blah. But to be honest, well, it's not that I don't care, it's just it pissed me off. When in the beginning, when, Brooklyn was trying to open the door, and she said it was stuck, and, Chase was like, all right, let me try to go in there and figure it out or whatever. She was like, oh, well, thank you for mansplaining it to me. And I'm like, all right, so the reason why that pisses me off is the same reason why people who don't like racism but say racist comments pisses me off. Because you come across as a hypocrite. And it's one of those things where it's like, granted, she wasn't the first person to say it in the show. I remember Trina said it also. But when she said it, was like, I'm sorry, sweetheart. So because I'm talking to you and explaining something to you, and because of my gender, I'm mansplaining it. So what happens every time you talk and you explain something? What do you want me to sit there and say to you? Because anything that I say is going to come across as sexist. And so whenever I hear that, it's like, well, obviously I have a bunch of curse words in my head. But it's just like, for somebody who I'm sure wouldn't want to be treated in a certain way or call certain names based on the fact that she's a woman, has no problem being sexist towards a man. Like, that just pisses me off. And it pissed me off so much that even when I felt like I was supposed to feel an ounce of sympathy for her, I had nothing. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I'm sitting there thinking, well, it's a steam room. You're talking about how hot it is. You're all like, oh, well, I don't want to sit there and be dressing down because you're like that. No, you idiot. It's like 1,000 degrees in there, and you have on this heavy-ass jacket. I swear I can call her so many different names. But I'm just like, you're a moron. Yeah, that part just... I know I was supposed to feel something, and as a reviewer, I could sit there and talk about the character growth. But emotionally, I was like, sweetheart, not only am I tapped out, but I really don't care. And that's spiteful for me to say, and it's not right, but you know what? I don't give a damn. Watching Liz and Finn talk about whatever it is that was going on, I felt like Liz was just annoying me. Because I get that she isn't ready to move on, or she doesn't know if she's ready to move on. She's still wearing a wedding ring. She talks about the kiss, and Finn is not there trying to be very gentleman-like as far as like, well, whatever you decide, you know, I'll stand by you, I'll be with you, whatever. Because he doesn't want to sit there and rush her. And I get that she's grieving, or it's been a while, or hasn't been a while. I can't even tell at this point. But it's one of those things where it's like nothing got resolved at the end. She seemed like she was going back and forth about her feelings as she was sitting there talking to him. And this is where there's a fine line between chivalry and being a gentleman and also being assertive. And that was the thing that was missing with Finn. And I get, because it just happened, it's fine, and he took necessary steps that he needs to take as far as that is concerned. But moving forward, I swear, if this keeps up, and Finn is just like, whoa, you know, you could decide on whatever you want to decide, and I'll sit there and be with you, and, you know, you don't have to rush. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to rush, but it's not fair to him. And I know a lot of times people will sit there and take some of this stuff as like, this is the standard and this is how I should move forward with relationships. But in reality, it's not fair to him. And keeping him on hold or being very back and forth with your feelings is unfair to that person. So if you're not going to make a decision, then maybe he should make one for you. Or make one for both of them. Yeah. Porsche talks to Stella. They talk about Curtis. They talk about Marshall. And how she feels. And mostly Porsche just wants to make sure that she doesn't have another stroke. So she's checking on her, making sure she's not too stressed out. She wants to talk about it. That's pretty much about it. Doesn't really go anywhere past that. Now Curtis, I don't understand what Curtis is doing, because Curtis basically said that, you know, he sees TJ with Marshall, and he's like, well, what are you doing there? What are you doing there, TJ? Like, I told you not to sit there. Well, I told you to be, you know, stay away from him. It's not what you told him. I mean, you said that in the beginning, but you agreed that it's TJ's choice if you want to sit there and have a relationship with Marshall. But then you did this whole flip-flop thing, and now you're just like, no, you should leave. You should get out of here. And TJ's trying to keep the peace. Curtis asked him one more time, why'd you leave all those years ago? And you know what Marshall said? The exact same thing that he's been saying for weeks now. So it doesn't really go anywhere. And Marshall decides to leave because Curtis is like, kick rocks. And TJ's like, it's not fair because I want to have a relationship with him. Curtis tells him, listen, let me check this guy out first. And if he's doing the up and up, you do you. If he's not, then we're going to have some issues. Curtis does sit there and want to talking to, Marshall winds up meeting Stella at the end of the episode, and they're like, Stella's like, let's put all our cards on the table. It's only going to be a matter of time before whatever the secret is that comes out. And Curtis is going to once again be upset with Stella for probably lying to him for all these years. Yeah. And finally, Alexis and Harmony. So they're both really sitting there talking about redemption, how they don't feel that they redeemed themselves even after they got out of prison. They're both kind of feeling like, they didn't serve enough, they didn't get enough punishment, apparently. So they're both bonding over that. And there was one point where Alexis was like, listen, I'm going to go home. And, you can come with me. Because I got, Christina and Molly. And, oh, yeah. Christina was one of your victims. I almost forgot about that. And I'm like, how did you almost forget about your daughter being, a blah blah blah, with Shiloh? How did you almost forget that? See, that's my whole thing so far, is that happened, and I know people are like, they want this friendship to happen. I heard there may be more than a friendship, and I'm just like, so we just supposed to just gloss over the whole you slipping a little thing in my daughter's drink and nearly having her do something that would affect her for the rest of her life? I'm supposed to just gloss over that and just be all buddy and drinking wine and hanging out and like, no. And I get it. A lot of people, No. I know a lot of people have done some really bad things in GH. That, in my eyes, I feel like is actually unforgivable. I know that she atoned for it. She helped push Shiloh away. But that's like... But that's just me. No. So she's like, yeah. And, Harmony was like, well, maybe once they got outside of prison, we really shouldn't have a friendship, and I totally understand. And then, she walks off, and Alexis looks at her feeling kind of guilty, but also like, yeah, it's my daughter at the same time, so, yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's about it. If I forgot anything, which I'm sitting there like 4, 5, 6, 7, Z, that's usually how I do my notes. So if I forgot something, please write it down in the comment section below. I want to thank you for watching, be safe, and I will see you in the next video.